Introducing the next generation from Nintendo. New Super Mario World. Created especially for the Super Nintendo Entertainment System.
It was peaceful in the Mushroom Kingdom.
So that's the new Super Nintendo Entertainment System.
What about it?
They say it has 16-bit technology, whatever that means.
Oh, I see. What else do they say?
That it has 3D graphics and digital stereo sound, and that Super Mario World is included.
Okay, we'll get it for them.
Those are good.
Now you're playing with power. Superpower.
Tubers and trolls, Chris here with Telesplash Gaming, one of the OG members of the Brew Crew with you, and you're watching my buddies Robert and Wes live out their nerd fantasies, drinking beer and playing games at Gaming Off the Grid.
Parents around the globe were confused. Why do you need this new game console? What do you mean it doesn't play the old games that we bought you for your regular Nintendo? The Super Nintendo arrived in August of 1991, and it raised the bar.
It took what Nintendo did with the NES and made it super.
Yeah, I mean,
it's in the name.
Yeah, 16-bit, and you know, it was just a graphical marvel at the time. I remember the first time I seen one. Now, I did not get a Super Nintendo till way late. I remember seeing it for the first time and just being like, wow.
What? Yeah, the huge leap in graphics. The controller added 2 more buttons and shoulder buttons.
Yeah.
I did not play a Super Nintendo growing up. I didn't play one until I was an adult, which is crazy, but I was way past that. Like, it went for me NES and 64.
Yeah,
because I was just way young.
Yeah, so came out, again, August of 1991, retailed at $199.99, and I believe Super Mario World was packed in. So, pricing-wise, you know, fairly close to the NES, which there's more concrete data on pricing for the Super Nintendo than there is on the NES. The NES is kind of all over the board. But, you know, could they replicate the success of the NES? And, you know, from a commercial standpoint, they didn't quite get there. 49 million units sold worldwide, only 23 million of those in North America, which seems fairly low when I think back to the Super Nintendo and how popular it appeared to be, at least in my neck of the woods.
I was just way too young when it came out. I wasn't even born yet when it came out.
Yeah.
And my mom didn't have one, so I didn't know about it just because I wasn't born in the era.
And no pun intended, but it still was super successful, as it was the console leader of the generation. Nostalgic and memories, you know, I know you don't have a ton of nostalgia for it, but
I do know that this generation and this era, though, was the generation of the console wars.
Yeah.
Genesis versus Super Nintendo. Which one's better? Who cares?
It's still a playground fight to this day, probably. I mean, you get, you know, a couple 30-somethings around and start throwing this thing out there after a few beers have been had, and, you know, there could be some fist fights over this thing. My nostalgia for it is not quite as thick and doesn't run as deep as the NES, because I did not own a Super Nintendo until I believe it was 98 or 99 when I got one, and it was for a Christmas that I asked for an N64.
And you got the Super.
Yeah, which it was a weird thing. You would think that I would have been let down, but I was still really freaking happy to get it, and I got the Donkey Kong Country console bundle.
That one's sweet.
But the reason I say my nostalgia doesn't run as deep is I believe it was that very next Christmas that I did in fact get the N64. So
you only had it for a year.
Yeah, so my memories are more going to my neighbor's house and playing it, and he had amazing games, and I had 2 other friends that had Super Nintendo, so it was always a big deal to go over to their house. And did you guys ever have friends, or maybe you did, where they had something that, like, they'd had for a long time, so it wasn't as cool to them, but that's all you wanted to do when you went over there?
you just used them for the video games you didn't have.
You're like, oh, let's play Super Nintendo. They're like, oh, you know, yeah, okay, you know, because you're looking forward to it. To them, they have it all the time. But one game that I played just constantly back then with my friend Dylan was Turtles in Time. We played the hell out of that game.
Such a great game on the Super Nintendo.
And I had a lot more time in this era with the arcades because I was skating a lot and I was going to the arcade. Well, it was called Skate South, but they had arcade games there. So I was enamored with like Mortal Kombat and things like that, NBA Jam, and then you could play it on
at
the Super
home.
Nintendo, yeah, and like Turtles in Time, you know. So
And you were like,
it was really cool.
What?
And my memories of the Genesis are kind of the same way, as I had a friend who had that. So I didn't really have a dog in the fight at the time. I was just wanting to play the consoles when I could. But once I did get the game, obviously I got Donkey Kong Country and that pack in, and I got Super Mario Kart, and was just blown away. I'll never forget when I started playing Donkey Kong Country, and I still feel this way. The graphics blew me away.
Dude, they are still so beautiful.
Still blow me away. And I remember thinking, like, man, how could the N64 do this better? Like, this is the best thing I've ever seen, and I still feel like it's one of the best looking games ever made.
Well, and the soundtrack.
Yeah.
On top of that, it's such a good game.
Little aquatic ambience.
Oh my god,
Yeah.
that song is amazing.
Yeah.
So I don't really have much nostalgia for the Super Nintendo since I didn't grow up playing it. I didn't know anyone that really had one. I didn't play it until I was an adult, but I still appreciate it, and there's so many amazing games. I still love it.
Yeah.
But not as much as the NES because I didn't grow up with it, you know?
So, if someone's looking to get one in 2021, which is kind of the whole premise of this series we do, but let's talk about the console variants. There's 2 core console variants, and yes, there are clone consoles and all that. We'll get there. Oh, we'll get there. But as far as original hardware, you've got the base model of the Super Nintendo, and you have got the Super Nintendo Junior, is what I call it.
Which is adorable.
Yeah, it is. And it was kind of again, similar to what they did with the top loader for the NES. It was a cheaper model that kind of came out when everyone was going for, like the N64, but you could get in on it on the cheap.
Super cheap.
Both are great options. This doesn't have any complaints out of me. I've always liked this. Ours works like a freaking charm.
Boom.
Except for a reset button doesn't work. I probably need to open it up and look into why that is.
But it fires up.
Yeah,
That's all that matters.
yeah, and it's just a street. I still prefer the look though of the original.
Yes.
But I did always love the purple and gray look of the North American version. I would die on a hill saying that version looks better than the PAL version, but I know people in that territory would probably do the same. But I've always loved the colorway. It's the reason for the colorway of our channel.
Yeah, purple.
It's all because of the Super Nintendo. But within that, if you're looking at like variations of console box releases, I mean, we could go on forever.
We'll put a bunch on the screen right now.
Yeah.
There's so many of them. It's overwhelming how many there are.
It is, and the ones that stick out to me that I just remember seeing in the stores was the original that came with Super Mario World, the Donkey Kong Country version, which we have the box for both of those, the Super Nintendo Junior, but I also remember the Mario Paint one when that came out, because that was pretty cool. And then I remember the one that had the Super Game Boy packed in with it.
Oh, yes.
But then there's a bunch as collectors that I've seen through the years. I know like Brian just got a Super Nintendo Junior, but I believe it had like the Zelda pack in with it, and I never remember seeing that.
There were so many that I feel like I keep discovering more console box variants in 2021 just because I'm diving deeper into it than I realized there was.
And I can't remember what con we were at, but I seen one that I want to say had like a Ken Griffey Jr. game with it. Is that a real thing, or am I making that up? But I feel like I've seen that, and I was like, what the fuck? And I seen it, and I was like, that's pretty cool. So there's a ton out there. But as far as what console you could get into, both relatively affordable, I think. I mean, some people might disagree with that, but
I mean, if you're going to eBay and want to buy it now, you might spend a little bit more money, but you still can find them at garage sales and thrift stores. Now, I will say that we find Super Nintendo consoles a lot less than NES consoles.
Yeah.
But they're still out there if you want boots on the ground, looking for stuff.
Yeah, and as a whole, I think everything we're going to talk about in this episode is maybe a notch more expensive. Not maybe, it is a notch more expensive than it would be on the NES, which if you've been following, you've seen that video before you're seeing this video. So the barrier of entry is a little higher here. So let's talk about some of the accessories, and then we will jump into and reveal our top 10 Super Nintendo games of all time, ones that you should look for, and we'll display the prices for them as well.
obviously the first accessory we need to talk about is the controller. Yeah. And I already mentioned it came with 4 buttons. It was an upgrade from the 2 buttons, and it includes shoulder pads.
R&L.
Which is so freaking sweet. And this is really cool because the North American version has convex.
Both. I think it has both, right? So X and Y.
Oh yeah, and then A and B
are convex.
Convex, yeah.
And X and Y are concave.
And but then in the PAL regions, isn't it flipped?
No, they're all convex on the PAL controller.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's why.
That's a good question. I can understand.
I'm already confused, and I know what it is.
Yeah,
but why?
Well, and I can understand the color difference, but why did you fuck with the buttons, Nintendo? Like, I don't get it.
Well, I will say that the North American controller is the better controller.
Ooh,
no, I'm
hot take.
I'm just kidding. I know we have a lot of people across the pond that watch it, and I just wanted to piss them off.
So. Yeah, no, I think it's all preference, but an amazing controller. As far as retro stuff goes, and this might ruffle some feathers too, but the Genesis controller has always, I can get used to the 3-button and 6-button layout, but my problem is, and it just could be because I was a Nintendo kid, I've always struggled a bit with the Genesis D-pad.
Yes.
On both variations of the controller. I've never liked D-pads that were all exposed as one solid piece.
Yeah, so then they do that so you can do your crooked shots and everything.
Yeah,
but
it's weird.
I don't feel as precise.
Because under the controller shell, all D-pads are one piece.
Yeah.
They're not individual buttons, but they've just always played different for me. That's just my thing. I've always loved the NES and SNES D-pads paramount to any other consoles.
And it could be because I didn't grow up with the Genesis and I grew up a Nintendo kid, but the learning curve I feel like for the Genesis controller is a lot more than if I were to just jump into a Super Nintendo game. It's very confusing. Now, the more I play the Genesis as an adult, the more I'm like, okay, this makes sense, it's kind of cool, I like it. But for jumping in, first-time players, there is a learning curve for the Genesis. So, this isn't a let's hate on the Genesis episode, but
it's kind of turned into that. But no, we love the Genesis.
Genesis versus Super Nintendo.
We collect the Genesis a ton, so it's no hate there. Another accessory that I think is a must-own, especially if you're going original hardware. So we're going to talk about other ways to play these games at the back end of this episode. But the Super Game Boy, at the time, offering backwards compatibility to play my freaking Game Boy games on the TV.
On the TV.
It was freaking huge, man.
That was revolutionary. It was so cool. It's basically like the Switch, but in the 90s. You could play your games on the go and then play them on the TV.
Yeah.
It's so cool how they did that, and they're just crossing. It's like, oh.
And then there were Game Boy games engineered specifically for the Super Game Boy. So when you'd play it on that, you'd have special borders, you'd have a little more color brought in. So cool, and it's an accessory that to this day we use quite a bit, which is strange because we have the Game Boy player as well on the GameCube.
Yeah.
But something about playing the Super Game Boy, and it's not even that expensive of an accessory.
No, it's not.
Which I would think it would be.
Yeah.
But it's awesome, and they're very dependable. Everyone we've ever found...
It just... boom, fires up immediately.
Resold. Where the hell is that damn thing? We have a cool custom case for us. Yeah. Come here, little boy.
Look at that bad boy. He barely fits in it.
He barely fits in there, but come here. Come out. Show us your undercarriage. There he is. I just love this. Like, look how cool. Does that not get the nostalgic blood flowing through the veins of the
plug it in.
Oh, yeah. Now you're playing with superpower, dude. Yeah, that gets me jacked up. Another accessory, which we're not going to get it down because we'll get B-roll because would just be a nightmare. We'd probably die of an avalanche. But we have the Super Scope, and really love that. And the scope is actually outside of the box, and that's loose. A fun story. But
that's a secret story.
Well, you have to meet us in person to hear that story. We have it CIB foam inserts, Super Scope, very cool accessory, but kind of a dog shit accessory.
I feel like this applies to a lot of the NES accessories and a lot of the Super Nintendo accessories. Is they released all these accessories that are cool, but in practicality, good luck.
It's like it's a cool toy, but it's not a cool gaming piece.
No,
it should have been though.
How many kids got a Super Scope and just used it as they were pretending it was a gun?
Yeah, probably the majority of them. It looks really cool, and I love something about the nostalgia of it. Like it's still when I pick it up in Smash Bros, I feel like I'm the king of the world, dude. I'm like Super Scope, let's go. Love the Super Scope. but you might not want to go out and get one.
No.
Ours is in here to be a cool display piece. That's literally what it's good for.
And just for nostalgia.
Now, there was a decent light gun for Lethal Enforcers put out by Konami, and it was also on the Genesis, but I think it was called the Justifier, and it's a badass, like, revolver, Dirty Harry style light gun. I've only ever used it back in the day on the Super Nintendo a couple times, because my friend had it.
I've never seen one of those in person.
And then, well, we had the Genesis ones over here, though. Remember, Newland let us borrow those.
Yes.
And they worked pretty well.
But on the Super,
Yeah. So, pretty cool. I believe they're blue. That's at least the one that I've seen. I think there might be an orange or a red one, because I think you could get a two-pack. But that's something we need to get at some point. We don't have that.
We will at one point.
I think a lot of people probably remember the Super Nintendo mouse. I just sold that Mario Paint a while back that I had found in the wild.
That's so cool, because it's like, oh, your Super Nintendo is a gaming console and also a PC. Yeah. That's what they were like trying to do.
Yeah. And Mario Paint was badass.
It was. You could do so many things with it. Going back to it, it's like not the greatest, but for the time, it's Mario Paint. Way cool.
Yeah, it was
very
fun.
Innovative.
Yeah, it was a really cool thing, and it's an actual accessory for the Super Nintendo that does work very well, in my opinion. Now, finding one that's not all dicked up, that's another story. But if you get a good working one, it actually works pretty well. The SNES Super Advantage is their fight stick, which is a pretty damn good piece of equipment.
It's pretty good.
Street Fighter?
I love playing it with fighting games and shmups.
Yeah.
So, just like we said in our NES video.
Yeah, for sure. Game Genie, that was a big deal. We've got the Game Genie for the NES and the Super Nintendo. I don't know what it is about those that has me so nostalgic for them. We never use them.
No.
But they're badass to have.
Just the idea of being a kid and being able to, like, cheat.
Yeah.
You felt like you were like hacking the game. It was cool.
You freaking a lot of pumpkin eaters back in the day. Cheater, pumpkin eater. There was some other stuff. There was a multi-tap put out by Hudson Soft. I believe it was for the Bomberman games.
Ooh, okay. That makes sense. Four-player party.
You know, it's one of those that I've never played with, so I don't think it's a necessary accessory, but it's out there. And then there obviously is some really weird shit. Like they had that SNES exercise bike. Remember Kelsey from the MGR crew found one?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. There's a piano for something. I've seen like videos, never seen one in person of like a military grade like M16. There was apparently some like exclusive underground military training games on the Super Nintendo that were private.
Whoa, the government's hiding stuff from us again?
Might have helped win us some wars. Just too soon?
There's hashtag too soon. There's so many. I feel like the 90s, especially, video game consoles or video game companies released all these crazy accessories.
Yeah.
Why?
Well, I think we've talked about this before, and I can't even remember what episode we talked about this in, but companies were taking risks because they did not know what worked.
Yeah, true. So they were just
on the cusp of trying to be innovative and just throwing paint on the canvas. It was a really creative time. And as we've gotten on through time, they know what works, and it's created kind of a landscape of a formulaic approach to the video game industry. They know now what works.
Well,
so we don't get this crazy ass out of bounds stuff as much.
I feel like that can apply to video games, movies, music.
Oh yeah.
Everything nowadays is this. I mean, obviously there's still stuff out there, but they know what works and makes money, so it's just cookie cutter now.
I think we talked about it in a look back episode.
Yeah, we did.
I think,
and we dove deep, and you kind of got angry.
Maybe I did, but I'm not angry today because we're talking about the Super Nintendo. So we did this in the NES episode, which is kind of a new thing we're doing in the series because we don't do a lot of like top 10, top 5. What do you? Because we just I don't know. We will maybe someday, but nothing against them. We just never have. So we figured instead of telling you the games you should maybe go get, we're just going to talk about our top 10 favorite Super Nintendo games of all time. We'll put a little price charting bit in there so you can kind of see what they are for a loose copy. And we know price charting is not the most accurate place in the world, but it's at least a source of information.
And it gives you an idea. So let's jump into our top 10. We made this list so quick, so everyone's going to be like, how come you didn't talk about this game, this game, this game?
We shot it off the wrist
we just shot off the wrist,
filming.
And also, it's our list, so
who
cares? Number 10. Thunder, Spirits. I've already mentioned we love our shmups.
Yeah.
This game is so sweet.
And if you're thinking Thunder Spirits isn't the best Super Nintendo shooter, I like UN Squadron. Well, we like UN Squadron too, but this game is the Thunder Force counterpart.
Yes.
On the Super Nintendo. So Thunder Force is obviously everybody knows how good of a shooter series that is. Well, Thunder Spirits is actually an arcade port I could be wrong. Thunder Force AC, BC,
It's
whatever.
It's kind of confusing.
Yeah, but it's in that universe. And it's an amazing game that people sleep on. So number 10 is a little bit of a nug. A hidden nug.
I love this game so much, and it's so simple. But I remember when I discovered it for the first time, and it was at MJC 2018, I believe, and that is Super Smash TV. Oh, I love just how simple, top-down, run-and-gun this game is. And the Super Nintendo controller is like 2 joysticks. Like, it's so cool.
Twin-stick shooter on a controller that has no sticks.
Yeah, it's so
But
freaking,
it works.
It's so freaking badass, and it's so simple. You freaking go around collecting toasters and TVs and just trying to survive. It's just simple.
Everything you just said, I'm sold.
And
Toasters, TVs.
And it's fun.
Yeah, it's a great game. Number 8. I mean, it started it all. Super Mario Kart. And I still love this version of the game.
Super Mario Kart.
I love it.
This game is super charming. It started the Mario Kart franchise, which is huge nowadays. It's a great game, especially doing the battle mode.
Yeah,
oh,
I'm
that's
telling you right
super
now,
fun.
You get me with Koopa Troopa, bring it. I mean, I'm probably top 5 in the world. But this game,
Top 5 in the world.
This game's number 8.
That's a bold statement.
Well,
Speaking of
I'm
bold,
ready to back it up.
Speaking of bold, let's move on to our number 7 pick. Zelda: A Link to the Past. Number 7.
Yeah.
It's a Zelda game. It's a beautiful Zelda game.
It is, and it's actually the second Zelda game that I ever played through and beat, because I was never a fan of Zelda 2. And I know people have said, oh, you gotta try it again. It just wasn't for me. I need to try it again. You're right. I need to get off my old freaking soapbox and play it. But this game, it was just that perfect evolution of The Legend of Zelda into this game. And there's been, talks with all the Zelda remakes. Maybe they'll do that. And I was like, no, don't touch it.
Yeah.
Don't touch it.
Alone.
Leave it at number 7 on our list of best Super Nintendo games of all time.
Super Metroid. Oh, this game is super fun, but hard and confusing.
Yeah.
Like, where are you supposed to go?
Metroidvania.
Maybe style.
Yeah.
Samus.
Yeah, I love... I shouldn't say I love. I like Metroid on the NES. Don't love it. Like it. Love this game.
Yeah. They took what Metroid was and just made it, can I say, super?
Yeah, I mean, I did not... Really, at the time when this came out, I wasn't super excited. Didn't care to play it. But then once I did, I was like, oh my lord. They actually nailed this game. It's the definitive Metroid game, in my opinion.
It's so good, and I know I keep saying it every time I talk about Metroid, but where's Metroid 4?
It's a game that I kind of played a couple times back as a kid, and I just, because it's a franchise that I love so much, and it's Super Punch-Out.
Yes.
Megadan 29, though, was like, bro, you need to play that game again. He's like, it's a badass Super Nintendo game, and so I did. And I freaking love it.
I remember when we first started the channel, you loved the original Punch-Out. You were like, I don't like the Super Nintendo version. You just didn't play it.
Yeah.
And now you love it, and you play it all the time. The music's great. I will say, it's crazy how different it is.
And I think that was the rub for me. And it took me a while, I think, as a kid. I don't think I was so dialed in on the original. I don't think I understood the game. But I will say, when you freaking just pop somebody in Super Punch-Out, it feels like you're knocking their fucking block off. And it feels so good.
Especially when you can knock them back to the turnbuckle. It's so satisfying.
Yeah, it is.
Speaking of being satisfied, I No Death ran this game, so obviously it's going to be our number 4. Let's Contra 3 The Alien Wars.
Hey everybody, hold tight while Robert toots on his own horn here.
I don't do it often, so when I do it, I get up a little hard, okay? Contra 3 The Alien Wars, what a fantastic Contra game. It's a fantastic co-op game. It might be my favorite in the series so far, but hardcore's slowly getting up there as well.
Because we're putting a lot of time
Because we're putting a lot.
But I'm with you. As of today, the filming of this episode, I will say this is my favorite Contra game as well.
I mean, I haven't played them all, but it's so good. Moving on to number 3. Speaking of the arcades, Turtles in Time.
Yep.
Who doesn't love this game?
one of the best Turtles games of all time. Hyperstone Heist is up there as well. But something about the nostalgia for this game, you know, you're getting old when you like say quotes and stuff, and people,
And no one gets it.
everyone's like, you know, like at work, I'll be like, oh, it's getting a little hot in these rhinos. Crickets. And if I like stub my toe, I'm like, oh, my toes, my toes.
I knew you were gonna do
Nobody says anything. But I love this game. At the time, it was the definitive Turtles experience. It can't be enough good said about it. And it's a beat 'em up that doesn't have friendly fire, which is a major win.
So
because,
that's, yeah.
especially when you play with.
Especially when you play with players that don't know what they're doing. I didn't see any fingers pointed at me.
Yeah.
I love this game. It is hard, especially when you get towards the end of the game where you have to throw the bad guys. That part is tough.
Yeah.
You know?
You just gotta figure it out, dude.
I suck at
I
it.
love it, and I love Turtles, so it's gotta be there. One of the biggest crowning achievements in video game graphics and being able to push a console to its max, in my opinion, is Donkey Kong Country, the original. Now I know a lot of people love this one. A lot of people say this is the best one, Donkey Kong Country 2. And although I love the game, I can't explain why it doesn't connect with me the way Donkey Kong Country does. Something about Donkey Kong Country is just amazing.
It's visually beautiful still. The music is amazing. I know we've kind of already mentioned this earlier,
Yeah.
but like, it's such a awesome game. There's an overview map in between levels.
Yeah.
It's just so good.
I love all like the hidden areas, you know, where you get like the three animals, if you will, like the swordfish, the ostrich,
Oh, yeah.
and get the coin collectibles. The variation in levels, you get those minecart levels, which
Those are fun.
almost turns it into a completely different style of a game, just within one level to the next. It's perfect. The game's fucking perfect.
Speaking of perfect, let's move on to our number one game on the Super Nintendo. If this is the number one for a lot of people, I don't know what's wrong with you, because it's Super Mario World.
Yeah.
It's a given, but it's like perfected Mario. I know we said Mario 3 was like the perfection of
If I
Super
had
Mario World. I think I like better.
If I had to pick between the two, I don't know how I could.
Super Mario World is so perfect.
It is. It's an amazing game. The charm, Yoshi.
Yes.
The flying with the cape.
I will say that Super Mario World might be easier than 3.
I agree with you. Yep.
I think it's easier than 3, and that's why I think a lot of people like it more. You know what I mean? But Super Mario World, it's beautiful.
It's perfect. There you have it. There's our top 10 Super Nintendo games of all time, and games you might want to look for if you're looking to purchase or get into.
There's
the Super Nintendo.
so many other games. Yeah. So many other amazing Super Nintendo games.
It's for sure. And that's just a couple dumb Joe Blows. Just cracking off a top 10 list real quick right there. So, should you dive into the Super Nintendo in 2021? It's a convoluted question because there's a ton of avenues you could go down. I think you should find a way to play the games. Whether you're young and never had a chance to, I think there's so much to be learned about video game history by diving into the Super Nintendo. It's a great console that still looks great and plays great in 2021. Now, from an original hardware perspective, we've noticed the market settling a bit, but it's still a pretty expensive retro console.
It's still pretty pricey. I feel like if you wait a couple years, it will probably drop some more.
Because we've seen that with the NES.
Yeah, that's what the NES is, and the Super Nintendo is turning 30 this year, so it's super nostalgic for people that grew up playing it. But eventually it will drop, but if you want to get into it now, and you want original hardware, it is going to be pricey. We don't find them out in the wild that often.
No.
We don't find carts. I remember we found Contra 3D Alien Wars for 10 cents, and we were like, holy shit.
Yeah.
But that doesn't ever happen. We find a lot more NES stuff than Super Nintendo stuff.
For sure.
It will drop eventually, but it's going to be pricey to get into it if you want original hardware.
Yep.
Now, if you're looking to play it and you don't care, there's a lot of other cheaper options just to get your fix.
Yeah. So obviously, there's the emulation route. You can, play these games via licensed emulation on the SNES Classic,
which is such a cool snapshot. And there's an exclusive game on the Super Nintendo Classic that was not released, Star Fox 2.
Yeah.
Which that's good reason to get it.
Good emulation option there. Nintendo Switch Online also has the SNES app. Pretty decent selection, and it's only $20 a year
And
for
it's
the whole deal.
updated monthly, which is pretty cool.
The Wii U, you can download a bunch of Super Nintendo games on that, so if you still have a Wii U laying around. And there's obviously the unlicensed side of emulation.
Hackability.
Whether it's RetroPie, smartphones, playing on your CPU, modding old consoles, Wii U, Wii, GameCube, whatever your fancy is, you can mod various consoles to play these games. Then there's the entire universe of clone consoles.
Yes, which we kind of mentioned in our NES episode,
Yeah.
which those are really cool if you have the carts laying around, or if you want to get in the carts but now want to buy the console. And then if you have the console laying around and you don't want to stack up a bunch of carts, you can get multi-carts, which are super sweet.
Yeah.
You can get like a handful of games just on one cartridge. Obviously, it's not super authentic, but it still gets you in the door.
Yeah, and we have a pretty decent one that we got off of Etsy that has a ton, like 100 Super Nintendo games. They all play great.
Yeah.
So that's a good, cheap option. So there's tons of ways to play these games. Our personal preference, if you've been watching the channel, you know, we like playing original hardware, and we like playing it on the format of TV that it was meant to be on.
Yes.
We're not haters of HD TVs. We like
have
playing
them.
HD consoles on HD TVs. Older consoles, I like playing on a tube.
Yes.
Input lag is a real thing. I've yet to have somebody show me emulation that does not have at least a notch of input lag. Input lag doesn't frustrate me as much on the Super Nintendo for some reason, though, as it does the NES.
Well, that's because I feel like the games... Now someone's going to be like, well, what about this game? But I feel like the games, just in general, are easier.
There's something about...
And they're not as...
Precise? Like,
Yeah,
the
they're
precision?
I guarantee there's a ton of games out there.
For sure.
Yeah, but I just mean like in general compared to the NES, games for the Super Nintendo are longer, so I feel like they're not as hard for the NES. They had like limited amount of storage, so they had to make them hard, you know.
Well, and I've beat a lot of really hard games through emulation on, you know, the SNES. We've beat Alien Wars numerous times on original hardware and on the SNES Classic. I know there's a little bit of lag there, but I can work
But we
around it a
still
lot
did
better.
it.
I can navigate it. I don't like it. I don't prefer it. But anyway, we always prefer original hardware, but I totally get if you're just wanting to dip your toe in the water, get that nostalgic fix, there's tons of cheaper options out there. So, should you purchase a Super Nintendo in 2021, I guess what we're getting at is read your own mail. If you're wanting to be a purist and kind of a video game collecting enthusiast, I think you need to have a Super Nintendo in your collection.
Yes.
I think it's more important to say you should play these games in 2021.
Yes. Instead of just purchasing one, find
Yeah.
the way that's most convenient for you or that fits your budget. If that's the Switch, if that's hacking, if that's downloading ROMs. I know some of them aren't technically legal, but
That's on you.
the whole point is to just play the games because the Super Nintendo library has amazing games that need to be played. It's 30 years old, so the new generation needs to experience these games.
Yep.
It's so cool.
And it's
Super Nintendo.
super relevant in 2021, I think, and I also think it's very accessible. So, there you have it. We
And
love the Super Nintendo.
I don't know if we mentioned this, but it's super.
16-bit. Super power. Now you're playing with power. Super power. Speaking of power, Central Waters. This is a brewery that we were introduced to by Mr. Captain Algebra.
And now they're starting to pop up in our area.
Yeah,
which
for
is
sure.
super cool. This is the Cajun Sunset. This is a stout aged in used oak bourbon barrels with coffee, vanilla beans, and cinnamon added. It feels good to drink. I feel like we haven't had a stout in a while.
Yeah, it's, well, you know, it's kind of summer. Well, it is summer where we are, and kind of hot outside, so stouts don't always jive, but this is divine.
This
dude.
is jiving with
Yeah.
me all night long, dude.
Ooh.
This beer is so good. It's so flavorful.
Robert's open for business.
Ooh, yeah, I am. Especially when there's that Cajun sunset.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, right on the beach. Remember the first sip I took? The flavor was so good and so powerful. It has coffee, vanilla beans, and cinnamon, and I feel like they blend so well together that I can't identify them individually, if that makes sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I feel like the vanilla really sweetens it up.
And then I do get that strong coffee taste,
Yep.
but it just blends so well that it's just
Yeah.
like whatever this flavor is, it's delicious.
Just kind of like got like a sweet, just generalized flavor coming through. It's a very well balanced beer, delicious. One of the better stouts we've had in probably a month or two. I
and
would
probably
say.
a while
Yeah.
because we're not drinking stuff.
Yeah.
But
Very
so
good.
good. Central Waters, they are so good, and there's a reason Captain Algebra showed them to
Yeah,
us.
for sure. And they are central to my waters. I'll tell you that right now. My high waters.
Now we're both going down.
All right, guys, the Super Nintendo in 2021, it's still relevant. I think there's a lot of reasons to play these games still to this day. While everybody's running to the biggest, latest, and greatest, the shiniest new thing in the room, whether it be the PS5, the Xbox One Series X, and all those things, man, there's still so many great games that everyone's missed out on.
Yeah.
And
well, what's crazy is we're still picking up Super Nintendo games in 2021, adding them to our collection. Like, I'm still discovering new games because I didn't grow up with it. It's just, I'd much rather drop a little bit of money than get the new stuff.
Well, I think it's a great point. And one thing that we haven't maybe said enough is, yes, some retro game consoles are expensive, but you can go out and spend $500 on a PlayStation 5 and maybe get one game. Or if you put $300 even into a Super Nintendo collection, you'd be off to a really good start.
You'd have a giant collection, and you'd be able to play the games day one.
Yeah.
I just want to say
that. And I think you might actually enjoy it more. That's just my humble opinion on that. But nonetheless, we always appreciate you tuning in and subscribing to the channel. We'll see you next time right here on Gaming Off the Grid. If you get a good working one, it actually works pretty well. The NES Super parents across the globe were confused. Why? Why do you need this news? Okay. Oh, yeah. Tommy likey.
Ooh. I wonder what percent this is.
Well. Oh, it's 12 fluid ounces.
Oh, dude. 21%.
Robert's open for business.
Ooh, yeah, I am. Especially when there's that Cajun sunset.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, right on the beach.
I don't even know what we're doing right now. But, yeah, I really like it.
I remember the first tip. I took. I was like, dude, the flavor is so good. It has